So welcome everyone. It is 5 o'clock, and if you are in the right place, you are at a parent guardian question answer Zoom meeting for the Quashnet School in Mashpee. And welcome to everyone. We hope that we'll be able to answer all of your questions. And if at any time you or after this meeting you don't feel like a question was answered, you can always reach out to me. I don't know if I said I was Patty DeBoer, the superintendent in Mashpee. We have Dr. Hope Hanscom as well. She's the assistant superintendent. She is serving as the host. The way that we're going to have this meeting work is if you have any questions, you need to put them in the chat. Those go privately to Dr. Hanscom, and then she's going to read each question, and then we will all respond. We also have our Director of Special Education, Jamie Curley, is on this call, and then we have Principal O'Brien and Assistant Principal Kapolka from the Quashnet School as well. Various other important Mashpee team members are on as well. We have Susie Brooks, who's our Director of Instructional Technology, and Stacy Shackle, who is the District Nurse Coordinator, as well as I think Terry Richards might be on here, which is the Quashnet nurse. So I think, Hope, if you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, so you throw your questions in the chat and I'll read them as they come in. But also if you have just gotten on, if you could make sure you mute yourself. I did a mute all, but then as new people come on, I'm not going to do mute all because it'll cut off the person who's speaking. So please try and mute yourself. Any questions, go right into the chat. If we go through, and please start putting them in now. If we go through and for whatever reason, we have an hour for this meeting. So if by 6 we haven't answered all the questions, we'll answer them either in an email or in an FAQ or in another way. But we were able to get through, not to make you competitive or anything, but we were able to get through all the middle high school questions in the hour. So I'm just saying, like, let's have Quashnet beat that. No one's laughing, but I think it's
Quashnet can handle it. We can do it.
I think they can, exactly. So as Mrs. DeBoer is kind of getting started, I'll be letting people in as well, and I am seeing the questions. So Mrs. DeBoer, do you want to add anything before we start with questions?
No, just I really appreciate sort of the partnership that we have with our families. We know that no plan is going to please or satisfy the needs of every family, but we are doing our best with, student safety being first, and then really making sure we get a return to learning, which is what we're all about here. So just a thank you to everybody who's been helping us to solve the problems together.
Okay, so our first questions are related to what will lunch look like for the kids and what will recess look like? Mary Kate? Mrs. O'Brien?
I'm happy to share with that. Lunch and recess, the students will be attending both lunch and recess within a small cohort of about 5 to 6 classes. So they're with the same students in the same area and sharing the same spaces. The lunch will be served in both the lunchroom and in gym. So both of those places. And when our students do go outside for recess, they'll go to either part A of the recess area or part B. So we've separated those to reduce the number of students in each area. If you're assigned to the recess area A, you would have lunch in the cafeteria and enter through that door. So you're not real close coming in. And if you're in recess area B, which would be the big playground on the side of the gym and part of the field, you would enter the building through the gym door. So again, it's breaking up the students so they're not all clumping. And if you've ever been here for lunch, you know what it's like. That whistle blows after recess and everybody comes rushing into the building to eat. We just want to try to break up those groups and those lines so it is more manageable and we can maintain that 6-foot distancing, which is really, really important for everyone's well-being. So 2 different spots on recess, 2 different areas for lunch, and we will have a rotation in place so students will all be able to experience both sections of that recess area.
I'm going to keep going with a recess question because there was a little bit of a further one. This is from a student, actually, whose parent is asking on his behalf. But will they be able to play sports with modifications? If they bring lacrosse sticks or tennis rackets, can they use them to play? And where will we put our masks when not using them? That's, was that at recess or just in general? In general. Okay, so that one we'll get to after because that's a Nurse Stacy question. But the 2 recess ones, can they bring their own stuff in and can they play sports with modifications?
There will be some sports available. We have that big, huge field that kids love to play soccer on. And Mr. Morris is working on some modifications and ways to set up some lines and delineate areas on that field. So again, trying to separate the kids as much as possible to keep that social distancing. We do not want them sharing lacrosse balls, for example, which they can't have a lacrosse ball at school. It's too hard. So I would prefer they not bring something like that in. It's also important to know part of the Board of Health regulations is we will not have access to lockers. So students won't be able to store something like that in their locker. Their backpack will come into the classroom. So I think that would be best left. We do have tennis rackets here at school, and we're working on getting wipes. So in between each recess block and lunch block, it's also important to know that there will be a 15-minute separation between the groups coming out, and that will allow time for a tennis racket to be wiped down. It would allow times for the swings to have some cleaning on them, on those chains. It will allow time for some general cleaning and disinfecting, which will make a difference. But in terms of lacrosse sticks, I think we need to keep those at home. But we will have equipment outside. There will be activities outside. We hope to have the walking club back, and we're looking at putting some sensory walks in outside on the walkways. So there will be activities. We also have a great labyrinth that our kids love to walk on, and that's an opportunity too during recess. So we want them outside. We want them being physical. We want them running around and playing together. So we're going to work to make that happen. But in terms of sharing equipment, that's where we have to be really careful.
Okay, our next question asks, and I can answer it, who do you reach out to if you change your mind for remote, if you chose in person? So if you change your mind at all, if you had chosen remote and you decide, oh no, I really feel comfortable, I'm gonna go in person, you can do that. We have set it up so that students, we have a place for every student, whether they're remote or in person, in a hybrid week. So if you want to change your mind, you would reach out, and I put it just now into the chat for everyone, to Mrs. O'Brien. I put her email there. You would email her, and then we would behind the scenes sort of manipulate the rest of the piece. The only hiccup to that is if you chose to drive your child or remote and you need the bus, we will need a little more time to set that up because the busing is so limited. Doesn't mean we won't do it. It just, the going from remote to hybrid is much easier than the transportation piece. So we'll just need a little more time for that. So that answers who you, if you can change. The next question is, hold on a sec, sorry, I got lost onto where I was. Where will we put, and this is from that student again, so Nurse Stacy, where will we put our masks when we're not using them?
Great question. So we'll be learning how we take off our masks, how we do hand hygiene. Nurse Terry's going to do a lot of lessons too, I believe. But we will be placing our mask when we take it off on a paper towel. We will take it off the correct way and leave it there, and then put it back on and then do our hand hygiene. So it'll be on a paper towel.
And that's something in the very first couple of days, there'll be a lot of training on to how to manage the masks, how to maintain that social distancing, how to wash hands. And we're very lucky to have Nurse Terry with us, and of course the support from Nurse Stacy. So your kids are going to be in really good hands.
The next question asks, what specials will the children have? Music, STEM, library?
So we did have to change our special rotation from a 6-day rotation, which we had in the past, just like Coombs had that 6-day rotation to a 5-day. And that was really important, knowing that students would be here for a week and then off for a week. So our special rotation, we are going to have art, we will have PE, health for grades 3 through 6, STEM, and we will have a music special. So those 5 specials, all of the students will be able to participate in over the year. The students will be going to that special location. Our art room is very large at Quashnet School. Our music room is very large, so it can accommodate every classroom that visits that room. But only 5 classes will be visiting that room, and there is space in between each group that visits in order to wipe down desks and areas where students have been.
Mary Kate, did you want to talk about the 34-day cycle?
Sure. So in the past, when we had that 6-day rotation, each day students would visit a different special. So to limit that exposure to multiple different places for kids and for teachers as well, the rotation will be on a 30-day basis rotation. So all certain students will be assigned to art, and they'll attend art for 34 days. And then after art, then they would attend the next special, which could be STEM. The rotation will be provided to you. It's based on the homeroom teacher, but that 34-day is their opportunity to participate in that particular special.
Okay, our next question. Any news about band and chorus?
So band and chorus, unfortunately, entail a lot of saliva. And especially with our students who are learning how to play an instrument, and singing makes it very difficult. So at this point, we do have both band and chorus on hold, and we will not be introducing that. We're hoping in January, but that first session of our after school is not going to be held at all. In terms of strings, I am working with Mrs. Hill. We are going to try to get a strings program up, but it would be remote. We have been so fortunate at Quashnet School to have our after school program in a late bus on both Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. However, for this first session of learning, which would be from September through January, we are not going to have our after school program. So a couple of our programs, like in our National Honor Society, can meet on a remote basis. I'm hoping strings will be able to work on a remote basis. So some of that I don't have a definite answer to yet, but band and strings, band and chorus, we will put a hold on until January. We really need to get the learning down first.
Okay, will students still have 2 teachers? And if so, when they are on a remote week, are they in their classroom with their teachers?
So we are departmentalized in grade 5 and 6, and that means we have different teachers that teach math, for example, and English language arts. And yes, those students will still have 2 different teachers. In 6th grade, we have 1 team of 3. Students, however, will not leave their classroom. So teachers will be going and switching their location. So for example, in 6th grade, we have Mrs. Johnson and we have Miss Baccaro. So Miss Baccaro's students will stay where they are. She will walk next door to Miss Johnson's room, and Mrs. Johnson will walk over to Miss Baccaro's room. And that way too, it just limits that amount of exposure that students have. They will not be sharing a desk when they're here in school. And what was the other part of that question, Dr. Hanscom?
When they're on their remote week, I guess it's really, what does that look like? Are they remote in the classroom? Is it separate?
So that is a great question. And I do want you to know that this remote experience is going to look very different than it did in the spring. In the spring, as you know, we had a grade level Google Classroom. Students went to that grade level Google Classroom. Now it is going to look different, where teachers will connect directly to their teachers. So if you have a student in 5th grade or in 6th grade where they have a team of teachers, they will be able to reach out to both of those teachers. The teachers will have what we're calling a landing page. You will find it very easy, I think very easy to access, and the students will as well. But there's going to be a direct connection with the student's teacher and the student versus just responding to a grade level classroom. We really felt that relationship piece was lacking in the spring. It just wasn't strong enough, and that's really important. And that also helps that that engagement, the encouragement, why they want to come to school. I think one of the best parts of, and so many of you I've talked to, one of the best pieces of COVID is how many kids can't wait to come back to school. So we want to make sure that when they do come back and when they are working remotely, that they have a good relationship with their teacher or their team of teachers. That's very, very important to us.
Patty, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that as a remote elementary school learner, there's an expectation that your child is spending 5 hours a day on their academics. There is not an expectation that they are connected virtually for that full 5 hours. But with each class, and it's a little different at the elementary level, but let's just take a 6th grade. If math is beginning and you'll have a schedule ahead of time, every learner, whether they're sitting in the classroom personally or physically, or you're at home as a remote learner, you must have your attendance taken. So the teacher is likely to start with a Zoom meeting that everyone must sign into to take attendance. There could be some explicit instruction provided then, a classroom discussion, various ways that that time can be used. And then there may be work, as there is normally in a classroom, that you're doing independently of your teacher. And so the in-person learners and the at-home learners can be doing that as well. What we talked about in the last parent meeting here, the teacher may have started a Zoom. Maybe she chooses to leave that open. Maybe she mutes it or she stops the video, but the chat is open. And that will allow remote learners to ask questions if they're working on an assignment, as well as the in-person learners. So, and then when the class switches to ELA at the elementary level, those remote learners have to rejoin for a period of time when that teacher is providing some guidance for that learning. So throughout the day, you are basically, as a remote learner, you are tethered to the content area courses that are taking place in the school.
And that schedule will be provided, and that is one reason it's so great when the kids do come back that first week. They will know how to access all of that information online whether they're remote or in class.
All right, next question. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to quickly say, if a family is choosing 100% remote, we will be providing various tutorials that will allow your child to sort of, because we're not going to have the advantage of them being in the class for some of that really explicit, how do you be a remote learner? So we will be working on ways to make sure that everybody's on the same page and has the same skill set. Sorry.
Okay, the next question. I love Zoom. The next question is, how often will the school sanitize the restrooms?
So there is an agreement with DPW, and we are working on having those bathrooms in all the areas that are touched frequently disinfected at least 4 times per day. It is important to know that all of the toilets are an automatic flush now, and the sinks here at Quashnet have, since our renovation project, have all been touchless. There are also paper towels now instead of the air blowers, and those are touchless as well. So you put your hand under it and the paper towel comes out. But those bathrooms, we're getting another day custodian who will help keep those bathrooms clean. Mr. Kapulka and I will be out in those hallways and monitoring bathrooms, as well as other staff as they're going through the hallways, just to make sure that students are distancing, and we're not going into the bathrooms, but just to make sure that they're not too many kids are going in there. But there is a rotation planned for the cleaning and disinfecting.
And just to add to that, the cleaning and disinfecting during the day in those bathroom spaces is done through sort of a manual application. It is not a spray that takes place. That only happens at night in the bathrooms, correct, Stacy?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And there will be an additional day and an additional night custodian hired for each building as well, who will pick up the sort of expanded role that the DPW will have for us.
Yeah, we have, just quickly, we've developed, I think there's actually 18 items. It's very explicitly detailed as to the cleaning protocols and practices that will be followed by the custodians.
The next question asks, will they be able to interact? And I wonder if we could even shape it as how are kids going to interact during this model?
So we actually, Mr. Kapulki and I are working on placements right now, and we are making sure that during those Mashpee weeks and Falcon weeks that there is a good balance of both boys and girls in all of those classrooms, and that remote learners are there, but there will absolutely be time to interact, to have discussions, to talk in class. And I think one of the planning ideas too is for teachers to partner students that are in school with remote learners as well. And that way they can work on Google Docs. We're very, very fortunate to have the technology in our district that we do have that will help with that conversation with our remote learners and our in-person at the time. But they won't be working on a project side by side. The social distancing will be there, but they can certainly collaborate in multiple ways. And Google Docs certainly helps us with that quite a bit.
Yeah, we have lots of virtual, a lot of our teachers have taken their master's programs online 100%. And I did my last schooling I went to was 100% online. And the group work that we did is going to be similar actually to how it works here, where you're sort of Zooming and you're working collaboratively on a document or a slides presentation. And to be honest, the kids are used to that because even when we're 100% in person, they're doing work like that as well. Are flu shots required to come back to school?
So flu shots, this question was last asked in our last group as well. According to Governor Baker from Massachusetts, flu shots are now required. Families have until December 31st to get their child a flu shot. And the only thing that I want to say is, or was pointed out to us when this first came down, was according to the state data, 81% of school-age children in the past get a flu shot. So we're really talking, or they are trying to capture the other 19 or 20%. However, it feels quite a bit different when you're choosing to get a flu shot for your child versus you're being told to. So the dynamic has shifted a little bit, but the guidelines we've received right now is that families are expected to get a flu shot flu vaccine by December 31st.
And I just want to clarify that that is not only for those choosing to come on a hybrid model, but those families who are remaining 100% remote are also required under this sort of mandate or whatever you call it from the governor's office. So that was a little confusing to me. So I wanted to make sure it was clear. Do you know when a step up to third grade will happen?
Well, we are working on that right now, actually. We're going to be sending out a Google form where you can sign up. We're looking at the evening of September, I believe it's 8th.
I think it's 8th, 9th, and 10th.
I think it is the 8th, 9th, and 10th, the week right after Labor Day. Yeah. And we'll be welcoming like 4 families at a time to come through. I know it's been hard not having our regular step up to third grade. That's hard, and I know people get worried about the building. Your children will never be alone. We're going to take great care of them, and I can tell you our third grade team is remarkable. They're very, very strong, and they're going to welcome your kids in every way, as well as Stephen and I will too. But we are working on that. It's coming out very soon. So thank you for your patience, but we are working on that currently.
And I just want to add to that, a lot of our teachers have been in. They're actually, their official start date is next Monday. But as it is with any summertime, the classrooms look very barren, but in the teachers who have been in so far, they look fabulous. They're outstanding. They're doing their normal thing. So I just want to assure you that it will be a very warm and inviting space for your children.
The classrooms look great. The building is clean. It's getting ready to go. Yes, I agree. The classrooms are looking great. It takes a little bit for the teachers to get up what they want. Some furniture has been moved out, so they're rearranging, but it is a very welcoming place. And we're hoping we can have our Kiki, our wonderful service dog, but we're not sure about that yet. Stacy, any word on that?
More information will follow ASAP.
Okay.
I'm just going to put out there that if Kiki's not coming, you might not see me. Kiki's how I get up every morning.
We know,
So,
we'll get you.
this next question I'll actually be able to answer, and Mrs. O'Brien will laugh when I read it. How are cohort groupings being determined? So the way that we have our cohorting, and so first of all, let me just say we're hoping to send out your cohorts and your placements by the end of next week. Is that correct, Patty?
September 4th is our target date.
September 4th is our target date. Students will be split into, if you're actually all students, whether you're remote or in person, or or a hybrid, but not third grade, sorry, 4th through 6th, will be split into a Mashpee cohort and a Falcon cohort. If there are students in grades 4 to 6 who have family members at the middle high school, then they will be in the same cohort as those. And if there are students in grades 4 to 6 who have siblings in grades 4 to 6, you'll be in the same cohort with your family. The way that they were cohorted, we started first with the high school, and we did that sort of by bus route, but balancing sort of all the different demographic subgroups to make sure that we have a well-balanced. So it's not like bus 1 through 8 is Mashpee and 9 through whatever is Falcon. It's not that. But it was looking at numbers and looking at who needed transportation and looking at all of that and then balancing. The way we did it at Quashnet was we took the high school, did all the siblings, and then literally Mrs. O'Brien and I went through and balanced. We just went by kid by kid by kid and balanced the 4 to 6 the best way that we could by, like I said, by the subgroup. So by gender, by students with disabilities, by students who are English learners, by socioeconomic status, and I don't have that chart up right now. But anyway, that is all you ever wanted to know about cohorting, but we're afraid to ask. We are your girls if you are interested in more detail. But it really was done with balancing the needs of kids and the sort of components of what's going to work, and making it. So I always said, I wish we were doing it alphabetically because it would have been a lot faster, is what I'm saying. But I think it's going to be so much better for our children the way that we chose to do it.
And we had to keep a very keen eye on transportation as well to make sure that the buses are not being overcrowded, to make sure any students that are coming in on that bus have the adequate space based on regulations. So that was just another factor in that cohorting.
Yeah, so like we said before, if and this is, someone asked this again, so I'll just repeat it. If you want to change your learning model for your child, I put Mary Kate's email in the chat. You would email her. That's a very easy spot because there is a spot for every student if they want to go either direction. But transportation is a little bit tighter, so that would just take us a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. Okay, our next question. The kids won't have to wear masks outside, correct?
Well, that is, it depends on what they're doing. If the teacher takes students outside, we are getting 2 tents that are coming. They're 30 by 30. We are asking parents to please send in a beach towel in their backpacks. And that way, when teachers do take them out, if they reserve the tent, they can bring them out and the kids can sit on their own personal beach towel to do their work. When they're out there, they're distanced 6 feet at least. And Nurse Stacy, I believe that would be sufficient to take a mask off. Am I accurate with that?
So yes, it could definitely be a mask break. It'd be the 15 minutes. We still have to follow the physical distancing, facing the same direction, all those requirements too. But outside is definitely a longer break and mask time. But as far as depending on what they're doing for activities, and if we can't do physical distancing, then the masks do need to stay on.
Okay, our next question. We have a child with allergies and he gets snivelly a lot in the fall. That sounds like my household. What is the criteria for asking someone to stay home in case they have COVID if they haven't known, if they don't know if they haven't been exposed?
I guess that's me. Terry, feel free to jump in. So we will be asking families to do a daily attestation checklist. We are actually asking you to do it whether you're in an in-person week or a remote week. And if your child does have any of those symptoms that are on the checklist, we ask that you connect with your respective school nurse, so it would be Nurse Terry, and discuss the symptoms and what's happening. That being said, we are asking that all families, especially if you know your child has seasonal allergies, ragweed is this time of year, to please now or tomorrow, since it's after 5, call your primary care physician and discuss that. Make sure that any chronic health conditions are under care and being managed, that you have a plan, that you have that discussion. The checklist does say that the sniffly runny nose is a mild symptom. However, if your child has that and another mild symptom, 2 symptoms does necessitate a dismissal. So we want to make sure that we have those things managed as best that we can. The other thing with COVID, I believe the question said about if your child hasn't been exposed. Unfortunately, there's honestly no way to know if and when we are exposed. We are going to do physical distancing. We are going to wear our masks. We are going to do our hand hygiene. But there's honestly no way to know when or if or how someone gets exposed unless you're doing something with a known confirmed case, and we're not going to do that in school. So you really need to work with your primary cares and then touch base with Terry to work on any chronic type of things to have a plan in place. Terry, do you have anything else to add?
Just a question. Is it a good idea for parents to touch base or somehow ensure that we have documentation to support that a child does have indeed a history of allergies?
Correct. So when you meet with your physician, having that plan in place so that we can develop a care plan and what our criteria will be. However, that being said, pediatricians are saying unless they're managed and evaluated, unless they get a diagnosis of allergies, we will have to send for evaluation and proceed from the checklist there. There is on our frequently asked questions going to be the link for the August 20th Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed requirements and frequently asked questions and how we do contact tracing and dismissals and evaluations. That actually has a lot of information to answer a lot of these similar questions also.
I just want to add a little bit about the health office. For those of you who have been at Quashnet, we do have a health office where Terry is, and there is a sick room, and then there's another little waiting room. Well, we have expanded that a little to prevent any, or hopefully prevent any transmission of illnesses. So there will be more space. Nurse Terry will be called to classrooms, but we still have a place if there's a skinned knee. There isn't going to be someone who might have a respiratory concern. If someone loses a tooth, we still have a place for that. That's not going to be a COVID symptom. So all of school is not changing. There are things that we do and our nurses do every single day that will not change. You know, there's children. That's why we're here. And we will be treating them and caring for them like children.
And just to piggy on that, so not everything is COVID related, as Mrs. O'Brien was saying. And then our rooms are called medical waiting rooms now. So just so you know that we do have all of that in place, and we do have the PPE available that should we need it. So we're in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 25 minutes to go and a lot more questions, and I love how thorough, Mrs. O'Brien, you are, but we're going to start to motor through a little bit faster, just because I don't want to miss anybody. So someone's asking if there's going to be after-school clubs.
No.
Okay, good one. This one you're going to need to elaborate more on. Can you elaborate on what a typical day will look like in person and remote?
So a typical day in person, if you arrive on a bus, you would come in the back of the building. We have 3 points of entry. When students arrive, there will be a staff member there, and there will be hand sanitizer as they come in. Students come in and they're just spread out more. They'll go into their classroom. They do not visit a locker, they go right in there. If they do have breakfast, if they participate in that, they would get their breakfast, and our breakfast area is going to be in the gym, not in the cafeteria, because there'll be less movement as students get off the buses. If you are driving your child to school, this is a huge plea. Say your goodbyes and hugs and kisses at home. Come to school. Kids need to get out of the car quickly. There will be more students being dropped off than we've had in the past. And in order to get parents out on their way to work or wherever they're going, we really need to keep the drop-off line moving and moving quickly. Before or last year, we would have 1 point of entry in the front of the building, and all students would enter that way who were dropped off. We will be dividing that by 5th and 6th grade door, and then a 3rd and 4th graders will come in the very front door. And that's just because of the proximity of their classrooms. So we really are trying to spread students out all along the way. Once they get to their homeroom, whether you are an in-person or a remote learner, you will be signing on, if you're remote, to that homeroom attendance piece. There will be attendance taken for everyone, and it will be recorded. And that will also give the time when teachers will check in with students, make sure they're ready for their learning. Depending on their special rotation, some classes do go to a special right at 9:25. Those students will be going right to special. And if it's a remote learner, they would be participating with that remote special subject teacher. Other than that, there will be a morning meeting. Students could anticipate a mini lesson based on whether it's English language arts or math or science or social studies. Then students would be either working independently, they could be working in small group, and those small groups could be remote, or they could be in person. It could be a combination of both. If your child receives special education services, they might be meeting with their special education teacher. The typical day is not going to look, I want to say, not really that different. There will be a rotation of academics. There'll be, I think the biggest change, we will not have a win block this year because we do not want children regrouping and walking. They're going to stay with their homeroom teacher primarily and in the space that they have. So win group we will not have, but I believe the mask breaks and will take up some of that win time. So unfortunately, we will lose a little bit of time on learning because of that, but it is a necessary piece. Snack will be in the classroom because we are 6 feet apart, and snack should be less than that 15 minutes. So we will be able to take a mask off, have snack. That's the typical day. Your lunch and recess block is going to be scheduled, and the teacher will provide that. And what that looks like. One big difference, I think, is that we do not have a grade level lunch, because in order to keep the number of classroom sizes, the students in a classroom down, we had to increase the number of 3rd grades, for example. There will be 8 3rd grade homerooms this year, and each classroom will have approximately 13 learners. Now, out of those 13 learners, there's a percentage that will be remote learners. So maybe you're looking at 10 students in a classroom in person. So not everyone could attend recess at the same time or special at the same time. So they're not going to be whole grade level recess or a whole grade level lunch, just to be aware of that. But the typical day shouldn't be that different. There's going to be learning going on, and then there's going to be specials. At the end of the day, We do have in the back by the buses, there will be 3 different points of exit by grade level. So we can also spread out. And in the front of the building, we do not want, for those of you who picked up, and I see Mr. Smith is on this, a couple different families, we would have students lined up in the front of our building, our parents lined up ready to sign their students out. We are going to dismiss in a live dismissal this year, and we will have students who are getting picked up assigned either to the gym, the front hallway, or up by our music room by the front of the building. So they're spread out more, and we will have enough staff to walkie people inside, say, you know, this family is here, please send out so-and-so, and we will send them out to you right away. But we're not going to ask families to get out of the car and come into the building. We'll manage that dismissal. So bear with us. It will be a learning curve, but we're going to try to get everybody to get out of here as soon as possible. But we felt that that was the safest way to do it. But again, it's that drop off in the morning. It's going to be most important to drop off all along that front sidewalk and have your student ready to jump right out of that car with their backpack and their belongings. Don't get out of your car. You don't need to. Just, bye, honey, I love you. Have a great day. Would be perfect.
All right, so I just want to say to the group, if you've asked a question in the chat that's already been answered, because we're so short on time and we have so many questions to go, I'm not going to answer it. But I want to also reiterate that this is not the only time you have to get answers to questions. So Mrs. O'Brien's email is in the chat, but you can also email any of us. So I just am putting that out there because there's a very good chance we're not going to get to all of these questions.
Dr. Hanscom, if I could just add, if we have these, I can also include it. I'm planning on sending out the first Sunday blog this Sunday. So we can answer those in the blog as well.
So perfect. That's great. I want to make sure Dr. Curley, who's our Director of Special Education, is on the call. And someone has asked about working with kids to get them up to speed if they're on IEPs or 504s. What might that look like? So Jamie, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, so there's still guidance coming out from the state for students who are on IEPs and you feel as though they've significantly regressed over this time period. That would be an IEP team meeting that would be scheduled with the team chairperson, who would be Christine Brown, in your building. And there's going to be like everybody who has been out of school kind of since this whole time, there's going to be a lot of catching up to do for all of the students. So that's something that we know that we need to look at. But generally speaking, for the students on IEPs, it would be a team meeting and a team decision for that and what that would look like.
So let's say a student is already on an IEP and they get reading services. What could that look like with the distancing?
And for the fall, for coming back to school. So it's really going to depend on the individual student in the classroom and the teacher. So what is going to happen is there's going to be individual learning plans that are going to be made for students if the IEP services on the IEP are going to look different than they would be normally. So for example, if a student normally gets inclusion services in the B grid, so that means the special ed teacher will go into the classroom and service those students. It might be that the student is pulled out of the room with that special education teacher instead to get the services so that the teacher isn't exposed to the entire classroom of students, but the student would still get their services. So in that case, an individual learning plan would be made in collaboration with the parent and the special ed teacher. And then that would be given to the family so that they are aware of what the services would look like for that student. So it really is an individual.
All right, so the takeaway is if you have questions about IEPs, you're going to reach out to Christine Brown, who's the team chair for Quashnet, cbrown@mpspk12.org. If you have questions about 504s, you're going to reach out to Mr. Kapulka, who oversees 504s as well. But you can also email any of us and we'll get you to the right person as well. All right. Someone's asking about Title I reading. There will still be Title I reading services with reading teachers. How it looks, maybe more pull out again for that for the cohorting for the teachers, so they're not as exposed, but we haven't finalized what that's going to look like. But yes, there will still be reading instruction for Title I students in grades 3, students who qualified for Title I in grades 3 and 4. Just a reminder, because I do oversee Title I, if your student qualified for Title I in 2nd grade, let's say, they may or may not qualify in 3rd, because it's very much dependent. It's a grant program that really is dependent on the kids in front of us and where they fall. And it's not like an IEP where it's an entitlement by the child. So I just want to put that out there. But if you have any concerns about your child's reading or learning at all, reach out to one of us. During the remote week, will students have access to their teacher throughout the day if they get stuck? So like, how much adult support are the students going to need, like an average student, would they need on a remote day?
So students will have access to the teacher, as the superintendent explained earlier. There is a possibility Zoom, the video will go off, but the chat will stay on, so students could certainly chime in. Students will be able to communicate from home with the teacher through email as well. So they will have an opportunity definitely to communicate during the day. There'll be more than one opportunity to actually sign on with the class as well. So every time there's a new subject that's starting, whether it's ELA and then a transition to math, there will be that idea of a mini lesson, a discussion as to what's going on. Every classroom, like I said, we're very lucky in Mashpee with our technology. Every student does have a device, but every classroom teacher has a Clear Touch, which is like a giant iPad on the wall. They're able to share their screen. So as they're instructing, the students will also be able to see that instruction as well. So there will be, we've just worked a lot on that opportunity for connections between our remote learners and our in-person learners.
I'm going to just add to that too, that this is, you know, I don't remember if this was this call or the middle high school one, but this is a new experience for all of us. So it may be that in like the first remote week, it's not working right. And there's kids, you know, let's say my kid, my 6th grader, is at home and remote and he needs help and he can't get it. Then you as parents are going to reach out to the teacher and you're going to say, hey, during this block, this was going on, it didn't work, and we're going to adjust. So I just want to put that out there, that this is our best thinking at this moment in time. And as we go and do, just like our spring work got a lot better as we went along, our spring remote got better. This will continue to get better as well. And we really are grateful for sort of your patience as we collaboratively, and I say all of that, all of us, you, work together to kind of work this out. Patty?
Can I just add real quickly? Unlike the spring, and I think Mary Kate touched on it a little bit, we are, Susie Brooks, our Director of Instructional Technology, is creating or helping us all create a landing page for the district. So you'll go to one spot, you'll click on a picture of the Quashnet school, that will take you to the Quashnet school landing page, and from there you will see every teacher. You click there as well, and so it's one spot that a family will and a student will have to go to, not multiple different sort of layers that we had in the springtime.
And someone had asked too about multiple Zooms, like, will they have to go find 8 different Zooms in a day? No, everything will be in that one spot, and that's coming. You'll see that before the kids get back. We'll be sharing that.
And that's where the schedule, the daily schedule, will also be posted for your teacher, your child's teacher.
Nurse Stacy, someone is asking if a student's allowed to have mask lanyards.
So we are actually discouraging those, please. Masks basically should be on unless it's a mask break. So there's actually not a reason actually to have a lanyard because our mask breaks will be done with taking them off and placing them on a paper towel.
Thank you. I knew you'd have that one. Someone says when students are in person at school, they will also be on their Chromebooks learning. Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes they'll be on the Zoom so that they can connect with the kids at home and collaborate in that way. But it's really it's not all day and it's going to depend. Sorry, I hate rushing. For kids who were given Chromebooks this spring, will they be bringing them back to school on the first day? If they are at the school full time? Well, why don't we just talk about what the Chromebooks are going to look like?
Mr. Maroney, do you want to take that?
Sure. We're hoping for everybody that took a Chromebook home back in the spring to keep them at home. And we're hoping to have a new set in the building by day one. I haven't been given any good ETAs on any Chromebooks, but I know we're very close to having the Quashnet school all set with a new set for all the students. So I would say the very first day of school, they should probably leave them home because if we're not there then, we don't want the rush of all students bringing them in because it'll probably be based on a classroom and we won't really know that until at least mid next week. So for now, the plan is any student that took one home in spring is to keep their Chromebook there, and then there'll be more to come as we get closer. But I'm hoping everything works out and they can just keep them there.
Okay. Do all of the classrooms have windows, and will there be fans in the room to keep the rooms cooler with the heat and wearing masks?
We are very lucky at Quashnet School because we just went through quite a big renovation project. All of our classrooms have windows that open, and they open wide. They open like a single hung window. They have also at least two crank out windows in each room with screens. So we're in really good shape. Even in our hallways, all of our hallways have windows, and the expectation is every window will be open. Our interior classroom doors will also be open, but in the locked position. Exterior doors to the outside will stay closed, but all of the windows will be open, so there will be good ventilation. We cannot have fans that are just circulating the air within a classroom because that is just circulating the air. But if we had a fan in the window bringing fresh air in, which is what our HVAC system actually does, it sucks in that fresh air to the classroom, then that is acceptable. But we cannot just have fans blowing. But I do think we're in pretty good shape. We also have shades on every single window. So even if a classroom is getting that sun exposure in the afternoon, we have shades that can come down to help keep the temperature down somewhat. But we're in pretty good shape, I believe, in this school. I feel really good about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any exceptions like health or religion allowed for the flu vaccine?
Yes, I believe so, but Nurse Stacy can take that.
Correct. So yes, religious and or medical exemptions, please work with your primary care physician on that, and then reach out to Nurse Terry and she can look into that, work on that with you.
Someone's asking more about the kind of kid-to-kid interaction if they always have to be 6 feet apart. Like, what is the social stuff going to look like for kids?
Well, they do need to keep 6 feet apart. That is an important piece. But when you go into a classroom, and I'm anxious to have third grade parents at least to come in to see that, you can have that conversation still in class. That will be able to happen. So it's just, you're not going to be sitting next to your buddy or sitting and having a private conversation. It would be a conversation within class. You might be working on part of a project and another student could be working on a part of a project, and those two go together. So there would be discussion. It just wouldn't be side by side. And that's an important piece, that we do maintain that 6 foot distancing.
And I just want to add, as an administrative team, we work together quite often throughout these last few months. And when we are physically together, we position ourselves in a large enough space where we are 6 feet apart with our masks on, but we laugh, we have conversations, so it feels pretty comfortable and normal. So.
Also, I just want to be clear, because there was sort of a follow-up to that we're not going to have time for, but these aren't our decisions. The 6 feet apart at recess, not our choice. The 6 feet apart in the classroom with masks, not our choice. So these are the requirements, and we're sort of trying to make them fit the best we can. But I definitely can appreciate the frustration of sort of people's challenges with this. But I would say probably of the health stuff we've got going on, I would say 99% of it is dictated and mandated and not in the control of the Mashpee Public Schools.
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
add quickly too, before we are out of time, something that Stacy had said in the last meeting was really having your kids, and we're all starting to do it more ourselves as adults, wearing your mask for longer periods at a time. You get used to it, and then eventually, you know, you don't focus on it as much as you might when you're first starting. So that's definitely a training that you could, it's like when you have your kids start to go to bed earlier before school gets going so that they're more trained. The mask wearing would be also an opportunity to practice with the kids, have them spend some more time.
Okay, somebody asked about the bus. We had to, again, this was not Mashpee Public Schools' decision, but our buses, in order to maintain the social distancing that's required, there are 71 seat bus. We can put 24 people on them. One of those people is a monitor. So there will be 23 students, there will be 23 seats on a bus taken in a zigzag way. Bus seats will be assigned and siblings can sit together. Otherwise, it's one student to a seat in a zigzag. You'll get all this information, it's coming, but I just wanted to, again, explain it. So,
and also one last thing, when the buses do their routes, they're loading. So the first kid who gets on sits in the back. So we're loading that way. So at least in that first initial interaction, there is a little less overlap of children.
So this one, again, we still have a little bit of time, and I'm trying to pick the ones that we haven't hit yet. How will you be handling notification of exposure? For example, if a child in my child's cohort tests positive, also, what if a child in a different cohort tests positive but rides the same bus as my child? Would that mean my child has been exposed and I need to be notified? So Stacey, I don't know if you want to go over just the general notification process.
So I would, again, defer to these scenarios are pretty well laid out in the DESE August 20th guidelines. But basically, it all depends on the scenario. So if it's right now, if we are 6 feet apart and everybody is masked, for contact tracing purposes, exclusion generally probably won't happen. But again, it's case by case, scenario by scenario, depending on the situation. So I'm not trying to be vague, but it honestly depends. But people who have a need to know or a part of needing to be excluded or quarantined will be notified by the Board of Health for contact tracing.
This is going to be our last one, I think, but it's one we haven't touched on, and it's for Sean, Mr. Maroney, and Mrs. Brooks, our technology department. It just says Chromebooks need updating, but in general, what is going to be the process for getting tech support, whether it's your remote week or not?
Well, I'll let Susie take that one.
So on the landing page that we talked about earlier, there will be a technology link on every school landing page that allows you to connect either with myself or other people on the tech team to be able to take care of those issues. We've been able to switch out devices all spring, all summer with people who have been having issues with them. So we're hoping to be able to stay on top of that. And also as our new fleet comes in, that will also help to alleviate some of our elderly inventory right now. So we'll have an online place for you to be able to do that, and then we'll reach out to you to be able to make those switches or make those repairs.
Okay, I can do one more, I think. A student who's struggling academically that used to stay after for extra help, now they can't. How are they going to get extra help this year?
Well, unfortunately, we will not have the late bus, but the teachers are going to be working very closely with the students. They're going to be assessing where they are coming in. We are expecting that there could be some learning gaps since we have not really been in school since the middle of March. So I will defer to the teachers. They are professionals. They are very good at what they do, and they will also give some resources to families who need them. But it is also important to know that those groups that will be in person are going to be pretty small. So there will be extra time within the classroom for each student to get some individualized attention. So I think that is an advantage going into this year, the size of each classroom. Even though we have students that are remote and in person week by week, the teacher will have some time to work individually with students still.
Okay, so there are a bunch we didn't get to, but I'm gonna email them to Mrs. O'Brien and she will answer them in the blog. And if you're new to Quashnet, the blog comes out at 5 o'clock on Sundays. It's very exciting. I read it every Sunday, no lie. But the rest, what we didn't answer will be in there. Patty, I don't know if you want to close it out with anything.
No, I just really appreciate everybody who joined us today and shared some of their questions. This is recorded, so you can always go back. If you, and like we have said multiple times, continue to send your questions. We definitely, you know, this is a unique year. I think it's going to be a great year, but we couldn't do what we do without partnerships with our families. And we recognize that we weren't able and aren't able to please every family. And we're trying to do the best that we can, but just really that mindset going into this year of sort of being open-minded, that we are learning together, we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to grow from this experience, but we are definitely not perfect. And we don't expect anyone at home to be perfect in this journey as well. So, but together, I think we're much stronger and we'll make it pretty positive for our children.
And please, please, Mary Kate will answer what's in the chat, but please reach out to any of us with questions, concerns. Wait, I just thought of this. We're here. That's what we're doing right now. So and we'll answer you as long as you're patient with us, that none of us went to school for this and we're figuring out as we go with the guidance that we get very late. So as long as we're sort of all staying on the same team, we're going to be great. It's going to be an awesome year.
And just a quick reminder, if you have not been receiving any emails from the superintendent, if you have not received links to the blog in the past, please reach out. Our office is open from 8 to 4 every day, and we will make sure that we get that corrected, because you want to get that information and what's happening here at Quashnet. So please make sure you're checking that email, and if you don't receive something on Sunday at 5, then definitely let us know, because
and you're missing out. I'm just saying, it's riveting.
Well, you know, I love taking pictures of the kids, and it's really fun to see those. So I don't know how riveting it
is to me. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, and more information is coming. Okay. So we'll see you soon.
How about that backdrop by Casey Van Huysen? Nice.
Oh, I was not going to call out Casey, but I want to be where you are, is all I'm saying.
Yes. Nice.